Welcome everyone, my name is Matt, I'll be facilitating today's meeting. Thank you very much for coming and taking the time out of your schedule to help us out today. Before we begin, I might ask Councillor Mia McGregor to open up the meeting.
Hello everyone, welcome. We officially started the meeting at 10:06. I just wanted to acknowledge that we are meeting on traditional lands of the people of the Kulin Nation and paying our respects to their elders past and present and anyone presenting today. If we've got an attendance sheet? No.
Oh, there is. I'll send it around to you.
Are you taking it?
I will after.
Yeah? Okay, cool. Alright. We'd like to just do a quick brief round with introductions. Some new people that are not usually here. Would you like to do those?
I'm sorry, Elizabeth McLafferty, but known as Betty, and I've been on this committee for a couple of years now.
I'm Councillor Mia McGregor. I'm Bridget Monroe-Hobbs. I'm the Manager of Community Development for Ageing and Inclusion at Maribyrnong City Council.
My name is Tony Williams. I'm a member of the local community.
I'm Santa Giordano on Care. Hi, I'm Margaret O'Loughlin. I'm a member of the Older Persons Reference Group.
And I'm Linda Fry, ditto.
I'm Robin Young, ditto. John Miles, and I am also one of those.
Don't be special.
Linda Essie, and I'm also a member.
OPRG, Zika Carey, ditto.
What is it?
I'm understanding it's my first time here.
Nice, welcome. We might just quickly go through the minutes of the previous meeting so that we can confirm them. We talked about strengthening seniors inclusion and participation project, and we talked about the results of that, which is really interesting. And 77% of participants said they would like to feel more connected. So that was an interesting outcome, and we'll look forward to how that flows out. We had connecting with emerging communities and statistics on that, arts and culture project, hoping that we could get a more accurate representation of older residents in Maribyrnong. And that was, we're talking about the photos.
Yes.
Was there action on that?
So we're just progressing the project plan.
The project
for that.
is moving forward with that? Great, okay. Community Maribyrnong Community Centre, we talked a bit about what they had to offer. Bandmates program, who can access it and how to apply, and that's now wrapped up its pilot. It was really successful from what I hear. Seniors Festival, we talked about some of the activities. Castlewell Club, Older Persons Guide to Maribyrnong being updated, and the fact that we're having this meeting. Has anyone got any questions, concerns or comments about that? Any alterations to the minutes? No? I'd like to put those minutes.
Move the minutes.
Thank you, lovely. Is someone to second them? Lovely, all in favour? Beautiful, lovely. And it's moved. And I believe that's all we have in terms of admin before we move on to the CHSP forum. Is there anything else that we needed to add today to that? No, lovely. Oh.
Thank you, Councillor. Awesome. So, my name is Matthew Gordon. So I've been hired by the City of Maribyrnong to manage the consultation process for getting feedback from the community around the Commonwealth Home Support Program. Just a bit of housekeeping. I presume most of you will know where the toilets and exits are, but for those who don't, we've got toilets just to the left and then turn right. And we've got actually an exit here and an exit just around the side here as well in the case of an emergency. We do have tea and coffee. We're going to be working pretty hard today, so you'll need lots of caffeine and sugar.
And Sika's birthday cake.
And Sika's birthday cake. We're filming today. We've got Lewis behind the camera. Say hi, Lewis.
Hello.
The purpose for that is actually, there's some of the discussions here today, there'll be people who will be missing out on those discussions, and we thought this might be a good way to extend the information and allow people to watch parts of this meeting on demand later on. Is there anyone who's uncomfortable being filmed? Because we can kind of keep you out of shot if we need to.
Hold my Libby on.
She wants some wide shots.
No one wants a slim shot. I don't know my better side.
Just want to change positions.
We
Now,
can
can I just be before you go any further, could I just ask what actually happened to the consultation that was supposed to happen at the town hall, and a couple of people turned up and nobody was there?
Yeah, so we changed the time and place for that, and we provided notice to those who had RSVP'd.
Oh, okay.
We had a low attendance rate, so we only had 2 people that had RSVP'd, and we communicated that we'd changed the dates. So thanks, it was Tony, I think, who rocked up, and someone else might have rocked up as well on that.
Nina did.
I responded, but I wasn't at that meeting that didn't happen.
Okay. Sincere apologies for the mix-up. It's a challenging time of year to get everyone together, so which is why we thank the OPRG for giving us this time to get everyone together for this particular meeting. We did actually get a lot of feedback through the postcard survey,
Yes.
and we'll be covering a lot of that today. So I think we've had over 135 responses on that. So a fair amount of information has been put forward, and we'll be using today actually to deep dive into those submissions to try and make sense of it all, and then come up with some conclusions which will form recommendations to council around how we proceed under this new aged care regime. Yeah. We'll hopefully finish by 11:30, because I understand there's going to be a Christmas shindig after this, and we will want to shoot back from the party.
Oh, don't mess with that party.
Don't mess with the party. We did start about 5 minutes late, so I'm hoping we might be able to go to about 11:35. Is that? Can I hold it that? I don't want to rain on anyone's parade here. Okay. Finally, what the content that we're going to create today, and the notes we're going to make out of today, we're going to try and get them back out to you guys in the community, within the next couple of weeks. And so everything that's kind of said here today, we're hoping to use that to spread the word around some of the advice and directions going forward. Without further ado, I might hand over to Bridget, who's Head of Aged Care Services, just to highlight the changes that we're expecting with the new CHSP, and also some of the issues and challenges that we face with that new regime. So.
Okay. So today is really to get your views around, we know that the aged care service system is changing, so what used to be the Home and Community Care Program doesn't exist anymore, and we have the Commonwealth Home Support Program. We currently have funding that's agreed to until the 30th of June 2019, and that means we get block funded, so that funding comes to local government and then we deliver those in-home services. The Commonwealth has recently announced that it will extend out that funding until 2020, but it'll be a new arrangement, and we don't know what that new arrangement is as yet. So the aim of the Commonwealth Home Support Program is to assist older people to live as independently as possible as they can within the community, and to have choice and control over the services that they receive. It aims to create a nationally consistent aged care service system. So at the moment, the aged care service system looks different in different states, and the aim is that it's the same nationally. So what you receive in Melbourne is similar to what you receive in Sydney. Services are for people who are 65 years and over, unless you're Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander, and it's 50 years and over. To receive services, and some of you have already experienced this, is referral must be made through to My Aged Care. So referrals used to come directly through to local government. They don't anymore. They come through the My Aged Care portal, and then My Aged Care determines what someone's needs are and whether they require assessment or whether they can go straight through to service delivery. So like I said before, the funding used to come to the service provider. All the evidence suggests and all the documentation suggests that that will change post 2020 in terms of the funding will go to individuals, so it will go to the older person, and the older person will have choice and control over where they receive their services from. So that's why local governments are starting to have these conversations, because that changes things in terms of how we deliver our services. Our current business model is based on the fact that we receive that funding, that block funding, and we can work out how much service individuals need, and we also have a very stable workforce as well. We know that we currently have 8,004 people living in the city of Maribyrnong who are 65 years and over, and we know that 2,245 of those people require assistance with core activities, so require assistance in terms of their daily living. And currently at council we have 1,129 people aged 65 years and over who receive our in-home services. So we're only servicing a very, very small part of our big aged care community. So from council we provide a regional assessment service, so that's what I was talking about before when the referral goes through to My Aged Care. If My Aged Care determine that you need an in-home assessment, that referral comes through to local government and one of Ben's team will come out and visit you in the home and determine what kind of services and supports you need and then link you into those services and supports. And we also have a community support team, so they actually deliver the in-home support, so that's home care, personal care, respite care, home maintenance. We also have a delivered meals program and we also have social support programs as well for older people. Some of you have received some of these services recently. Some of you are in receipt of them. One of the things that the change brings about is that people will have choice over where they receive their services from. So rather than local government being a primary deliverer of services, there'll be a number of providers out there where you can receive those services from. One of the tricky things for local government is if the funding goes to individuals, is it actually costs us a lot of money per hour to deliver the services. So you can see the difference between what it costs us per hour and what the funding is per hour under the Commonwealth Home Support Program, and then in red what the shortfall is.
And
so if you've got a bucket of money and you want to get the best bang for your buck, you may not come to local government for your
Especially not for home maintenance.
Not for home maintenance, no. Because of the cost of service.
Is that because the Maribyrnong wage structure? Are we paying more per? Is that the quantum of money that we put out for salaries is a large component of the shortfall?
It's based on a number of factors. So that's one of the factors. The other factors is the internal costs of council that support that service. So all of our internal administration, all of our IT support, our payroll support. So all that's included within that unit cost. So it's based on a number of factors. And we've never operated in a competitive environment before, so we've always operated the same. We've been in existence since the 70s, and you know, pretty much how we looked in the 70s is how we look today, except we've got better technology. Well, we don't have the
So would it be fair to say that council delivered and perhaps NGO delivered type services are going to bear, or may, if they continue to deliver services, bear a huge cost whack, whereas then there's the new providers that supposedly are entering, and they're going to be undercutting you from the start. You know, obviously they're going to want to survive and make profits and so on. So is that a tension that's already emerging, or?
So there are other providers. So what we know within the City of Maribyrnong, we're an inner city council, and we know that there are a number of established providers out there already in existence. So I don't imagine we'll see many new ones. We may. We'll definitely see them in the National Disability Insurance Scheme, I think, but maybe not so much in the aged care, because we have a number of established providers. And based on their business models and their structures, they are able to get closer to the funding per hour.
Has council considered amalgamations and arrangements with either other councils or with other service providers?
Yeah, so some of the work we've been doing is to look at, well, what are the opportunities to continue to sustain ourselves in the delivery of services. So we've been doing some collective work with other councils to look at, well, you know, what are the possibilities.
I suspect that the situation is going to be very similar to when the Commonwealth Employment Offices closed down and so many people, new providers came up and there were, you know, jobs. Yeah. And then slowly they all kind of fell by the wayside and there's really only just a few major ones. On the other hand though, whilst this is supposed to be such a new system, in point of fact, I actually had a client who was getting a level 4 package through Moonee Valley Council, and council was already getting, you know, money for her. And actually, when she went into care, she's 95, council actually got to keep the money, which was $17,000. It's not to be sneezed at. And they just got to keep that. It didn't kind of go on to the nursing home with her. I made a lot of inquiries and phone calls and things, and that was how it was.
It should get reallocated to someone else.
Well, apparently, but it's only since February this year. She went into care at the end of last year, and that was what happened. And I would suggest, not in Maribyrnong's case, I'm sure, but I would have suggested that that would be an encouragement to council to actually minimise the services, you know, if they got to keep the money and get and keep the money. So it's not a very good arrangement.
Yeah, normally the package goes
with the person.
It'll be reallocated
That's
to someone else.
only new, but that's
Probably because you highlighted the loophole.
Yeah, well, maybe I make such a fuss because they wouldn't even give me somebody to help me clean out her fridge and freezer, and I was doing all of this for nothing. And, you know, somebody paid could have actually come in and spent a couple of hours. So so it's an interesting situation, and one of the things that is probably not the right spot to put this in is, but what Canberra says, and the hypothesis is that people, you know, would want to be in charge of their own life and want to make their own decisions and things. But the reality is, and particularly if you've worked with non-English speakers, that you actually, the older you are and the frailer you are, the less capable you are of actually ringing around and getting quotes and all of this. So this is so wrong. It's ridiculous. Unless council actually employs someone to then do this, which is going to cost you more money, but to actually do this on someone's behalf.
And there's going to be a lot of people in that situation. As a carer working, you don't want that extra responsibility of having to shop around and look around and thinking, am I doing the right one? Is this, are they responsible enough?
Absolutely.
Whereas when it's with the council, you've got that peace of mind. You know, you trust it.
Yeah. So it's a real worry.
Exactly.
A real worry.
Yeah, and the system's changing for the baby boomers, I suppose, who are coming through and ageing, who have a different idea around how they might age in their community. So we are aware that for older people who are feeling really vulnerable, that that is a concern.
That independence is really not something we handle it well.
And we've been thinking too around, and that's some of the things we'll deep dive into in terms of, you know, the questions we've been asking the community are, what do you find most meaningful about local government services? Is it the fact that someone comes in and vacuums your floor every fortnight for an hour and a half, or are there other things that local government or council could be doing that would be much more meaningful than that? So I'd be really interested to find out that as well. That in the absence of service delivery, and I don't know what decision council will make, that's a decision that council will make next year. But it's a challenge that all local governments are facing because of the aged care reforms. But if we weren't in the business of service delivery, what is it that people would like council to do? Is it being that advocate or that broker and providing support in negotiate or navigating the service system? What's the role that would give that assurance that okay, the system's changed, but we know we can still go to local government for this, and this.
And bearing in mind that, as you said, there's only at the moment 1,000 odd people that are actually receiving services. So there is that tension, and
there are 8,000 people that we don't
That's
have
right.
contact with.
But that you potentially going to have knocking on your door.
Yeah, but I mean that could change, you know, if we look at the money that is invested in service delivery. So also just to let you know what we currently funded. So the gap, council's covering that gap with the Commonwealth funding. If council wasn't covering that gap in terms of supporting the service delivery, could that money reach 8,000 people? And what would that actually look like?
and maybe we're talking later, but the manifestation of, all right, there's mobility issues and so on for some of us, at 55 or 85. But we're a much more sophisticated community nowadays, and there are issues of various addictions. There's mental health issues, and God forbid, go counsellor, you could get into it. But but they are the emerging issues, or we're allowed to talk about the issues, and the debate obviously will have to go through council, but if you are only servicing 10%, less than 10% of the aged people, I'll just go back to what my father used to say, I pay my rent so I should have these services. Well, perhaps us baby boomers who are we're self-centered, but perhaps I would be also saying, I want a bit more social inclusion, I want a bit more movement and light, I want some preventative health services. So I think that's just a comment.
Out of those 8,000, you've got 1,000 who are having care. Does that mean there's people who, for some reason, can't get on the system, or they don't need the care yet?
They might not need it.
So I'm
They
thinking
might
so.
not want it.
Yeah.
Might not want it. So it's a whole range of.
Might have family that do stuff
Exactly.
for them,
So
do it.
that's what I'm thinking. To spread the money to people who don't need it, that's not a great idea. If there's those. I mean, at 65, if you're healthy, you're still really young. You can do so much. 65 is very young. Thank you for that. I agree. That's right. My mum's turning 88 too. So, she's just going to need more and more care.
And the argument can also be said that, and I've got my dear friend Betty sitting next to me. God, she is so bloody agile in her mind. So even though, we at points in our life we need that personal care and stuff, but we've got to also say, she or I, we all need to be included, considered at all of those other sort of roles. It's not. I'm sure, and this is, I suppose, why people feel comfortable about council. It's council delivers to 1,129 people, and those 1,129 people, probably at least 50-60% of them feel like they can ring up, they can have a voice, they can, they get to know their carer, and that's gold. When you're isolated, feeling. So it's that add-on. But I don't want you to forget about the other 7.5%.
So in terms of where to from here, so today we'll be looking at developing your feedback for council, and throughout the rest of 2017, council will be evaluating its role in this space. As I understand, no decisions have been made at this point. It's still a carte blanche. And there'll be discussions with the council executive and councillors in early 2018, where they'll start to build up their understanding of the direction that the community aspires to. and then by about mid-2018 we'll be reporting back to the community on a draft direction, as I understand. Does that make sense?
Sorry. What form will that report take?
The report.
Report back to the community.
How would you like us to report back? Sorry, Matt.
So, no, good question.
Something I could read at my leisure.
Okay.
Not on a computer.
If you get the local paper, could be good.
If you get
2-page spread.
Well, that's right. Yeah, in the local paper it is pretty obvious, but I mean, some weeks the local paper goes straight into the recycling. Most of
Lots of weeks you don't even get it.
I wish I got it to put into the recycling.
We've had this conversation before.
We have a lot of these conversations.
Yeah.
2 or 3 times a year. Missing newspaper. Maybe that's a role for council. Support the local papers.
Well, actually, yes.
And the
Not get out of
seniors
aged care and
paper
go
as
into
well.
publishing.
And the seniors paper as well. It's disappeared.
Yes.
So I guess the initial intention was to have a paper-based, but I mean, I like the idea about maybe collaborating with the local newspaper. I think it's quite a smart idea. And the initial report that would come out of today will be circulated both as an electronic version as well as a paper-based version for your consumption.
Matt, what are you going to do about separating the kind of the flights of fancy of people who want to have more country dancing or something, and the essentials of needing help with showering and cleaning and whatever? Because I think that a lot of the feedback that came back on the postcards were more social things, and I'm not negating the role that social inclusion plays, but I'm also talking about these essentials. So you need to kind of
Except that it's not the end of the choices for an individual to actually access personal care. What we're really talking about is this the business of the City of Maribyrnong post 2020? And what is more, what is going to be effective and more meaningful to the community? So somebody will still be able to do that. Or it could be a bit of a mixed salad. You do both. But I think we've got to keep in mind that what we're really thinking about is how important is council's delivery to us, emotionally, but also financially. And we've got to do that. And then we've got to think about the fact that that's stat. And it's like nursing homes. Not most of us don't go to nursing homes. Most of us don't die at nursing homes. Most of us, touch wood, don't actually take on board personal services until quite late in our lives. So we've got to think of that. And we've done a lot of work in OPRG and also in this council since I've been involved in the last 3 or 4 years, where I see that council is starting to get about connectedness and inclusion. And, is that the role? Because I just don't want rubbish and I've given up on having my gutters cleaned every 3 or 4 years. I think a lot of us have moved on from that.
Yeah.
Council's not.
Roads and
Sorry,
did you want to say something?
I did want to say something. I just had a thought in terms of reporting back to the community. There are lots of Probus clubs in the state, and there are a number of them in this community, and they are almost invariably made up of older persons. Some of whom are as old as 95. And if in some way the report got specifically sent to each of those, I mean, they probably wouldn't look at it, but who knows? I think that would be a useful thing.
I think it's a great idea, Tony. We'll absolutely take that on board as an option for getting the word back out. But I wanted to thank Sika and Margaret for helping segue the conversation Well,
We
should
didn't set that up, by the way.
Should we? Yeah, you mentioned fruit salad. I thought maybe let's look at the buffet and see what. So we got some feedback through the postcard survey, and this is ostensibly kind of the general themes that we got from the 135 odd responses. So virtually half of responses said, don't change anything, continue services as they are, we like it. About a third, this wedge here, said we want to improve or extend the existing services. There was about 12% that sort of said, I have no idea what this is about. I'm not sure, I wasn't unaware of the change.
Surprised it's only 12%.
Yeah. And you might say that, you know, of the people who don't understand the change, they probably would say, well, just continue services, whatever you're doing. I'm not going to deep dive into it, but whatever you're doing, just keep on going. But if we kind of take another, yeah, sorry, Betty.
Well, I get services and I'm quite happy with them. And I don't need anything else. If I've got a social life, I've got sort of personal friends I don't rely on outside people. I've got a few friends that I can get in touch with. And the services that I get are suitable for my needs. I get a cleaner one week, and then this week I get a shopper. And I can fit what I need into those people that come and they're obliging. And my shopper, we go to the bank first of all, then she pays bills for me, then we go to the chemist, then we go to the supermarket. And to me, the people that serve me couldn't be any better and more polite and do what I request them.
So you'd be in the don't change.
Yeah.
Well, I'm happy with the services provided.
Yeah.
And I've got no niche that I can say to you, improve this or improve that or don't approve that. I'm happy with the services that exist now that I receive.
Yeah.
And I think I'm fortunate that the people that come that are different nature, but they do what they should do and they're polite doing it and they don't waste any time. They don't say, oh, this bit needs doing and stay there for half an hour just to fill in time. They're not like that. I get on. I think I'm fortunate. And then when I've had a couple of different people to do over the time I've been incapacitated like this about 3 years now. And I can't ring up and complain about any of them.
So satisfied customer.
I'm happy with the services that I receive.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know about anybody else, but I've got no complaints with the people that I've dealt with.
Yeah. Does anyone else receiving services that share that view?
Actually, what I am going to say is that because I'm in the thick of things with my own organization, providing almost the same kind of services that the council is providing. Now, I can't help but comparing the two of them, right? As a private non-profit organization, we are concerned that the funding is going to the individual, and therefore the funding to our organization ceases, and it becomes virtually the running of a restaurant. If you come to be our patron, we will survive. If you don't come to eat at our restaurant, we will have to close our doors, right? This is our perspective.
Yes.
But when I look at the government, local government level of services, at the moment, when I saw your figures before, you are comparing your shortfall of the funding for your services. Now, personally, at the moment, under the existing HEC grant, you are no different from us. But when the policy changes, it is very much different because you still have the ratepayers paying you every year. You are obligated to provide certain services to the community, whereas we have to rely on patronage, which is quite different. Therefore, what I said in my mind is that how should the council look at the situation at the moment, right? Now, as recent as last week, I heard some very conflicting report from our manager, who is a social worker, who attended one of the consultation meeting or something, that actually some Commonwealth officers said to him, our funding to you at 2020 will not change. So now I'm very much confused about that because I don't know whether it's something new again, whether there's going to have a change of heart. Maybe it's a new applicant that is only have to be served by the new system, and the old existing services remains as the same. Now, something I don't know, right? But now, going back to council services, I believe council, I hope to see council taking the path of deciding on what kind of services they will provide the local residents under their own steam. Forget about funding, because you do have money coming in from your parking fines, from your rate, from all sorts of things. At the moment, a lot of unnecessary service, I call that, like the social meetings and entertainment kind of thing, but there are other things which is absolutely necessary for the residents, which should not be under the consideration. You do that only because you have Commonwealth grant. Right? Now, I think it's something that I would like to see the council starting to think in that way, how they are going to budget for necessary assistance, services to the residents without regard to government funding, right? Number one. Secondly, that portion of services that you are doing now, how are you going to disregard that completely, or are you going to have a different strategy to work with the private organizations, how they are sharing the work, how they, whether council would take on the role of a referral body or advisory body, and and perhaps supporting the private organization in a small way to help them to pay the electricity bill, to help them to pay rental or whatever if they need be, in a small way, to keep them alive, to keep them in existence.
But isn't this new model, at a higher level than us, of course, being discussed already, and the architecture is being around? And, Robert, you're much more involved than I am, of course. But, I just don't think that us dwelling on almost the day-to-day housekeeping, I mean, what is the strategic push from the Commonwealth? It's about, the individual and so on. And what is the proposal? I mean, there must be some sort of architecture around. And, all I'll just say is that Victoria is quite unique in the delivery of home and community care than the rest of Australia. Historically, and for my sins, I was Director of Aged Care Planning in the 90s and the early 2000s. We put in, the councils, we put in 20%, and Victorian government put even more. We have the gold standard in personal care in the world. You have people from China, you have people from Europe coming here and seeing this. So, historically, the Commonwealth has said, oh, well, thanks very much to local councils, you've done a wonderful job, and
Keep
you've
doing it.
expanded it, and you've, you know, and you look at some of the really, you know, I'm not saying this council isn't good, you look at the eastern suburbs, my God, what they provide. And they've been providing it for 20 years. So what we're hearing is the world is changing, guys. The Liberal government has decided that its user pays all the way for aged care. So while our ethnic groups and our community of interest groups are feeling pushed upon, this happened in residential aged care. This happened 15, 20 years ago. So that's the way the world works. So I just, surely your manager has got a view of the strategy that the Commonwealth wants to do. I mean, has the discussion been what place for NGOs? I mean, we're here about the discussion what place local government. But I know, and you know, you're a key stakeholder in our community. Has there been a discussion? Is there a discussion about the architecture?
Well, I can answer that question.
Yeah.
But I've been asking questions for the last 3 years. I have never been able to get the straight answers from anybody, right? The fact they have been delaying. We are supposed to have the whole thing ongoing this year, 2017. That was the original decision. 2017 is the date of the change. Why are they pushing it now to 2020? Because nobody knows exactly what's going to happen. They themselves do not know what they're going to do.
But the essential thing is, you will get a lump of money, and this is happening with disabilities and then the user has the ideas and you know can focus where they want. So what I'm saying is, surely councils are being involved in discussions. NGOs must.
Let me put it simply.
I might just hold there. I think there's we are going to deep dive into these issues in the next moment. I wouldn't mind just finishing off the rest of the feedback. But this is fertile discussion. I just want to be able to capture it strategically, if that's okay. But great discussion. Just a quick one to cap off the question about the delay in the program rollout to 2020 and Robin's point that funding's been somewhat committed, but it's people uncertain. Have you got any feedback?
So the architecture is the aged care roadmap that's sitting in behind all of this, and to date the Commonwealth has implemented everything it said it would in the aged care roadmap. So the aged care roadmap is that the funding will go to individuals. I think what's happened, Victoria has been pushing very hard to retain what it currently has, which is really difficult to do in a national system. And I think because of that, that's pushing out the Commonwealth's timelines. So whilst they had intention for the system to be national, they keep pushing out the timelines. What we've said at Maribyrnong is we don't want to be beholden to the Commonwealth. We want to make decisions around what we do and what's best for our community with the information that we have at hand. Because the Commonwealth could then say at 2020, okay folks, that's it. The funding is changing, so that's why we're having these discussions now. So rather than waiting for that deadline, we know from the aged care roadmap that that's the intention of the Commonwealth. We know from the recent David Chu report, which looked into the current aged care reforms, that there was indication there that the funding would go to individuals as well. So everything's pointing to that. The Commonwealth just isn't ready, and they just keep pushing out. Local government, you'll be fine, just sit tight, stay in, keep supporting and propping up the service delivery till we work out what we're doing.
That's right. Strategy.
So let's talk strategy for this local government. So just quickly, half feedback saying don't change anything. 12%, or they're probably even more, probably saying we don't really know what this is about. A third saying improve or extend services. Of that third, I understand more than 60% wanting to extend the services. That's what they mean by improve. So do more things.
Yeah, and one council to do it.
And one council to do it. We'll just want it to happen.
Yeah.
16% are saying improve the performance of those services from a kind of administrative perspective.
Longer hours, probably.
Longer hours, better communication, those sorts of things. We've got 11% on defining the role of Maribyrnong City Council, 6% on infrastructure, which we thought was maybe a little bit on the low side. We thought that would play a more active role in terms of improving local amenity. Communication at 5% and lower rates, less taxes.
Well, that would have been higher.
Is that only 6%? Come on.
2%.
I'm looking at the wrong one. My God.
It was a question very targeted.
So, in terms of like kind of what was being said, you know, so more services for maintenance around the house, lawns, repairs.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
very
that
good.
resonates for you guys? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, more community outings. You know,
That's the social bit again.
yeah.
One of the issues too is that, one, on the positive side, because we're all talking about maybe the negatives, because individual councils provide different services, and you always tend to hear about the ones that do more, you know, it's probably a good thing that it's going to be a Commonwealth funded thing where everybody is the same. So the information that we get, or we will get, even if it's fairly poor, will be general and will apply to everyone. Because I know, for instance, that some councils actually wash windows once a year. You know, some of them will, So there are things that, you know, that I think in our case somebody would laugh at you if you suggested that. So it's, it's, once it's general and everybody is the same or on the same sort of funding, then that, I think, is a good thing.
So it forces a even playing field.
Yes, and the information you get is information that can be applied to you, you know.
Of course, individual councils could add extra services from their own funding, so it still might not
Which
be
they do.
even, which they do,
Which is what's
And they could also still, you know, with my little package, I'd love to get my windows done every quarter. So, you know, I could still choose if that's where I spend it rather than whatever. So
There is a
think
flexibility.
about
I'm
that.
really concerned about some of the clients who sometimes in their old age become very parsimonious and actually don't want to pay. Now, what are you going to do about that? And are they going to actually have to handle? I'm the sort of person, you know, Margaret's the broader picture. I've always worked at the coalface, so I know the nitty gritty stuff, the small stuff, and I sweat the small stuff. You know, where's the money going to go? And are you supposed to, on top of everything else, handle that as well? And who's going to do it? And
really freaky.
and you know, and do you hand it over to your nephew and he then takes the money and runs? Just
Minefield.
minefield.
And it goes to the point that was raised earlier about as people are entering into the twilight years, the capability of making these sorts of decisions and so forth.
Very scary.
We also got feedback, not informed enough. I don't even know what this is about, what aged care offers. So there's a communication barrier or blockage somewhere. Some people are unaware of what they're entitled to, perhaps.
I put that down to a lot of the role of the GP in the community. That seems to me that's not council's role. It's GPs. GPs get extra funding for doing, a health check of me every year or so.
After
They've got
65.
the nurse, they got the they write it off, they get the new BMW, all of that. So really,
Painful for me.
that's not council's business.
Yeah.
The point of call, when you need a personal assistance, like for physical and mobility issues, well, you're obviously being involved in some of the community health medical system.
Mental health or
And that's the pathway. Council should not need to get into that because that's all diagnostic. It's clinical, you know. But that to me is the pathway, and the council shouldn't feel threatened or pressured into that. Don't push that back to the Commonwealth Feds. They can move that somewhere else.
But that's why I always take our booklets to my GP.
Yeah.
So they're there at least, and people can pick them up while they're waiting.
I mean, I only found out about it all when Mum was in hospital and got a package to go home, and they said to me, when this is finished, then the council can take over, and gave me the contact details. Someone from the council came, and I was just amazed how much support there was. I had no idea there was any support. I was just able to do it by myself, and it was just such a great relief that there was all these services, so that having Mum living with me is not a burden. And I can still go to work, I can still go and do my things. And it's the showering, but it's also taking her to the community centre 3 times a week so she can be people her own age, and I can go out and do my own thing. But that's what is great, because it's the same people who come and shower her, who take her there, who's at the activity centre, so she's familiar with all the faces. And for me, that's why I said, don't change it. It's great for me.
Absolutely.
It's great for her and it's great for me.
And it's at moments like this you realise how great local government is.
Exactly. I mean, I was telling my friends that
Awesome
I didn't
institution.
believe how much support there was out there. And I didn't need to know about it beforehand.
Yeah, that's it. You don't look it up.
We-
I didn't
You
need
don't
to know
to.
about it. I was told at the right time.
That's how it works.
Yeah.
We work on a need to know basis. That's how our brain takes in the information, I think.
You don't need to know.
All right. Now we're going to get into the business end of things. We're going to do some small group discussions, and we've got some butcher's paper, and we're going kind of old school, as it were, texters and butcher's paper. We're going to go through a series of questions around what we've just learnt today and what we've been discussing. The first set of questions are around what do we think the greatest opportunities are with this systemic change for council, and what are the greatest risks with this change for council. Okay, so this is just a bit of a risk assessment, as it were, from you guys. To do this, I was hoping we could break into smaller groups. So I'm sort of thinking maybe if we've got this sort of 3 just here, maybe this corner, maybe a 4, and I might then suggest that we have another corner around here, and I might get one of you guys to come up and join this group around here as well. And we'll get anyone comfortable scribing and writing notes on paper to take in the feedback from what's being said. That would be great. So we just need sort of one person in each group willing to do that.
When you pick the phone up, you just hang on.
Biggest risk. From
All
our
right, I've
perspective,
got your next assignment ready. So this one we're going to continue kind of reflecting on what we've discussed today, but this time I'd like everyone around each group to state 1 or 2 things they've learned just from today's meeting about hearing from other perspectives, hearing from Bridget and her insights. So if you grab a fresh piece of paper, given everything you've heard today, what is something that each of us have learned? I'll give you another sort of five or so minutes on that one. For this next question, I was hoping each group might formulate 2 to 3 statements that respond to the question, what role does council have in supporting the CHSP, the rollout of this? So this is really the guts of the feedback process, is to actually try and, given everything we've discussed, risks, opportunities, learnings and insights, what might be a statement of our role for council under this new regime? And there might be a couple of statements. So I'm looking for 2 to 3 statements responding to this question. I'm going to give you a little bit longer. I'll give you about 10 minutes on that, because there might be a bit of wordsmithing involved and a bit of just clarifying some certain ideas. So I'll hand over to you. And if you have any questions or would like to just kind of discuss the task further, just raise your hand. I'm happy to come over and help out. sounds like we're are we all done, guys?
Yep.
Nailed it?
Don't know how good it is. We've done our best.
You
Okay, alright, time to hand in your homework. What we might do is just do a quick, I wouldn't mind just someone from each group just talking through that final piece around statements of role. I might start with this group over here.
Oh, the noise.
Oh, well, you
Oh, come on now, I'm right, hello,
You did the right thing.
Thank you. She's a,
So maybe just in a minute or so, just to report back what you guys came up with.
Okay. What role does council have in supporting CHSP? Coordinating the entire project relevantly to supply maximum support to the present and future aged community in the city of Maribyrnong. I don't know whether it actually addresses that question, but anyway. A continuous support role within the community in regards to the viability of NGVs, bracketed to link arms and encourage, it said a bit corny, to link arms and encourage the sharing of service delivery. Council needs to manage and support the transition and ongoing support with residents' understanding and management of services and providers based on needs, but not only on financial consideration, or not on financial consideration totally. Use other council funds, i.e. parking fines, etc.
It's funny.
That's relevant use. That's relevant use.
Excellent.
That's it. Did that address it?
I think it's great.
Oh, good.
That's really well done.
Can you repeat that back, please?
It's all right. It's down there in words.
So I had a coordinating planning role. I had a continuous support for the private and not-for-profit sector and linking arms and making sure we're getting the most out of that. And I also heard managing the transition from one system to the other, with particular reference to focusing on needs, not finances. I thought it was
And older
very,
persons. Well, it's about
very sharp.
persons as
Yeah,
well.
good.
Thank you.
Well done, guys. This group over here.
We're a bit more short and concise.
We like to waffle.
Provide information to residents, probably from 50 onwards. The 50-year-olds are probably in the middle of trying to look after their aged parents.
You're so right.
Fill the gap with services not provided by service providers for profit or not for profit.
Great. So provide a bit sort of an information signpost, targeting plus 50 on where they might be able to find support and the programs that are available, and play a role around sort of filling in the gaps where people fall through the cracks, as it were, on some key services, I presume. Is that what you meant? Or?
And we were only interested in council services and NGVs, not interested in supporting private enterprise.
Gotcha.
Go get stuff.
Okay.
Basically.
I also
Sorry if there's anyone here from them, but no, you can get
that
stuff.
council could have a role in going to progress clubs and saying things are going to change, guys,
Yeah.
and you're going to come and talk to us if you wish.
Spreading the word.
On your mini.
I'd like to just put a PS. This is a program being initiated by the Commonwealth Government, and they are the chief funders. And with that goes responsibilities. So I agree to a certain extent about council's role in information. I think it's very important for those existing service providers to be given as much information. But the new world is being run by My Aged Care and the community, Commonwealth. So I'll just go back to what's council's core business, where do you want to go. Council has got a mission, a vision, and that needs, whatever response to this has to align with what council sees as their mission.
So aligning role around the council's broader.
Yeah, I just believe, because otherwise, like all of us, we all do fill the gaps. You know, we make up. When you're a community sector social worker, or you're a lawyer, or a nurse in the community, we all make up. We all do that little bit. I want us to. That's good, but the responsibility of the program and policy changes is that they have to go right down to the client and to the resident. And I feel that council just has to be very mindful and be careful of how much we offer. Because there's lots of heart, we know there's lots of heart, but you know, we could easily, whereas, yeah, we thought there was another one about that filling the gaps, maybe that's where the energy might.
Interesting. Thank you very much. Final group here. Did you want to share?
Yes, well basically our group said very clear that council's role was basically to retain the status quo and to fight for their little patch, and also the role of council to expand services that they currently offer and spend money more wisely, less festivals and more practicality. And council should get more information out. I'm mindful of what Margaret is saying, that the federal government is funding this, and thank God it's not a shared thing, because whenever funding is shared, there's always cost shifting and cost and blaming.
Yeah.
You know, when you've got the state government, this is health services, they're always stuck because you've got federal government and state government, and each one is pulling their own way and blaming each other for any lacks and whatever. So if it's fully funded by the federal government, yes, that's okay. I see that personally as a positive, but council is the best person to get that information out, because I don't want council to get out of people's services altogether. If you do, it's the end of our community as we know it. I really believe that, because I think that, you know, you are the nearest, you're the closest. Yes, get funding to put stuff out in different languages, and we know which community languages are required. We know your staff knows who they're servicing. All of that, I think, is very important. If you get out of people's services altogether, you're just going to be another bureaucracy that people do not relate to. And I think that is so dangerous.
Can anybody tell me what the council has received from the federal government, being told what the federal government thinks their council's role is?
Sorry.
Has the federal government said they've obviously said this is what we're going to do? Have they, I read that question and said, I'm trying to work out what the purpose of the question was, because I think the council has been told what their role is. Is that true?
So the Commonwealth find Victoria very unique because local government is actually playing in this space. So it's not relevant in terms of other states and territories. Local government doesn't actually deliver in-home services. So they hadn't had to consider local government until Victoria said, hang on a minute, local government's a big player in this, we need to slow down, you can't roll out this national model because in Victoria we do it differently.
Oh, okay.
In human services, Victoria is so much different to the rest of the
So
state.
if you were to say to the Commonwealth, is local government important, they'd probably go, no.
Yeah.
That's right.
But is the money, like the My Aged Care thing, that's the federal, right?
Yeah.
Does the money come down and be controlled between you by the Victorian government, or does it come straight down to you?
Yeah, from federal government.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the federal government is saying the role of the council, or one of the roles of the council from now on, is that they will run the age thing directly for us.
No.
The federal government's not saying, here's a bucket of money, guys.
No.
You do what you're doing now and do it better, or do it however
No,
you
they
want.
want to change the whole, they want the system to be national. So they want us to Victoria to come into alignment with other states and territories where it actually has been rolled out and is operating.
Essentially going into the hands of the customer. That's the fundamental change. Rather than going to service providers, of which councils in Victoria are one of those service providers.
We're running a few minutes over time.
Yes, so we're about to just quickly wrap up. So thank you very much for all this. So just to tie it back, so today we'll take all the content that's captured today, develop a short report so we know what's been said and the ideas that have been generated here. This report will go into an evaluation process with council and be opened up for discussion with the executive and councillors in 2018, and then by about mid-2018 we'll be concluding on a direction that council is going to take. So thank you very much for participating. Wonderful contributions. I want to make sure we capture all those notes. That's it's very important to make sure I've got everything that's been captured. Also, if you don't mind, sometime during the rest of your session today, I've got little post-it notes. If you could just rate how you found the process today on a scale of 0 to 10, 10 being this guy's awesome, 0 is very high in the air, and then I'm not trying to do any push polling or anything. Awesome. And then just a statement as to why you gave that score. Just this evaluation would be very good for us, just to make sure we're continuously improving our approach. Thank you very much, guys.